What's up, guys? My name is Josh, and I do these things called Let's Talks where I kind of talk about audio topics and things like that if you are new to the channel, because I know we've had a lot of growth in the last couple weeks. In the last couple weeks, I've pretty much only been doing reviews, just trying out a new video schedule. And today, I want to talk about the X factor of a headphone. And before we get into that, I do want to take a couple of seconds to plug my Patreon, because you guys who are patrons really help support the channel and make what I do possible and a lot easier than it would be otherwise. So if you want access to early content like the LCD2 versus M1060 comparison video, which is on there right now, that is coming out Friday on YouTube. And for the price of a cup of coffee each month, you get access to all of my reviews early. And now that that plug and shameless self-promotion is out of the way, I do want to talk about specifically the HD600s, but more specifically than that, the X factor of a headphone. The X factor is something that I would describe as being kind of a inexplainable factor of a headphone that makes you listen or choose that headphone over other headphones. A great example is the HD600 here. This is not the technically best headphone that I've heard, not even close. I think it is a very good headphone. I think it's still absolutely worth the money, but it is not by far the best headphone that I've ever heard. It's simply not. It's lacking in too many other areas. However, it is the headphone that I've heard that has the greatest X factor to it. That's why, after all the headphones I've heard, this is the one that I chose to save up and buy, and I did happen to get a good deal on it. But I wanted this sound signature because this is just something that I personally enjoy for one reason or another. And I have kind of another example of this, and before we get too far down this rabbit hole, I do want to say that I have no conclusion here. This is mainly just me talking about a topic that I find interesting, but I don't have a solid conclusion. And part of the reason why I wanted to talk about this was maybe somebody else does have a solid conclusion. And if you do, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Even if you just have an opinion and no conclusion about this topic, I'd love to hear it in the comment section down below. But here's a perfect example. So it wasn't exactly the HD600s, but it was the HD660. And I also had, at the same time of listening to those, I had the DT1990s. And I did a comparison. There's a link down below to that. And while I was doing this comparison, over the time that I had both of these, as well as a few other headphones, I noticed that the headphone that I gravitated towards the most when I wasn't analyzing, when I wasn't paying attention to what headphone I was listening to, when I wasn't testing these headphones, and when I was just lounging around or just doing work or whatever it was, to where I wasn't paying attention to the headphones themselves, the headphone that I always picked up almost every single time when I wasn't thinking about it was the 660. And the same thing with the 600s, and the same thing with not just Sennheisers. There's other headphones that are not technically as good as different headphones, but I find I pick them up more often than the technically better counterparts. And the truth is that I don't know what this X factor is. I don't know if it's comfort, because there are things like the 600s are not the most comfortable headphone, even that I have here, but I listen to them the most often. They're not the best at, well, compared to what I've got here, which is like 2Cs, X's, 3s, SHP 9500s, one more triple drivers. Like, I've got just a number of headphones here that may be technically better or better in certain areas than the 600s, but I always pick up the 600s when I'm just not thinking about audio. And I don't know why. And I'm kind of in a weird position in my specific circumstance, because when I review something, I try and come at it from as an objective of an opinion as I can, not being subject to my own likes and dislikes. So if I were to, for example, compare the LCX versus the HD600 here, of course the LCX would win, yet I have both here right now, and the one I always pick up is going to be the HD600 when I'm not specifically testing them. And at the same time, I definitely concede that the LCX is a far superior headphone in a lot more categories than this headphone is, but I always choose this one. And it's such a strange thing to me, because you would think that you would always gravitate towards the one that is the best. And I think the thing that I could probably equate this to the best is going to be like a race car. So like on a race car, it's stiff, it's, you know, it's fast, it guzzles gas, it's just not very easy to use, but it does perform better than your, you know, your four-door SUV, right? But your SUV is more convenient, it's got more storage space, that isn't directly equatable to headphones specifically, but you get the point. Like one's like a better everyday driver, the other one is more of an experience, like a on the weekends or on a Sunday or when you're ready for a type of experience. Whereas headphones like this are kind of just made to be like everyday drivers. And I find that factor incredibly interesting, and I've considered bringing it into reviews. Although with something like that, it's very hard for me to distinguish what's good for me as a daily driver and what's good for other people. And the other truth is, like, I may be completely alone in this whole idea. I don't know how many people share my opinions on this or don't. I may be the only one who kind of experiences and thinks about things this way. And like I said, I don't have any conclusions here, but it does beg the question, like, if I'm considering purchasing something for enjoyment, because that's all headphones are. They're not a required item in your life. They're something to add to your life's enjoyment. That's all they should be. So if we're going for absolute enjoyment, wouldn't you get more enjoyment out of something that you use every single day compared to something that you maybe only use on the weekends or every other week, or, you know, half as much, let's say, that maybe is technically better? So which one is the better headphone? It's kind of an interesting conundrum, isn't it? Because you're, on one hand, you're saying, well, this is technically better. But then on the other hand, you're saying, well, this is better and you're going to use it more often. You're going to get more total enjoyment out of it. And then you run into the rabbit hole of saying, well, you know, what is enjoyment? Like, maybe this only brings me up to a 7, whereas that headphone that I use half as often brings me up to a 10. And so which one I enjoy more is going to, you know, kind of separate it there. So it is very interesting to me. It does put me in a weird recommendation spot. Like, I'm probably not going to rearrange my reviews to accommodate this type of thing. I think I have a pretty good and solid review format, if I do say so myself, and I don't mean to be arrogant. I've spent a lot of time thinking about it. Since I'm kind of starting to get to a point where all I can really be is repetitious here and just drive the same point home. That's not what these are built to do. I'd love to hear from you on what you think the X factor is, or if you don't experience this at all, or if you always listen to whatever headphone is absolutely best. But I'd like to think I'm probably not alone here, and maybe we could come to some sort of conclusive agreement within all the comments talking about, you know, what might cause this. Is it a certain frequency response? Although I've had a number of different frequency responses between headphones that have that different, like, listenability or enjoyment factor to them, or, you know, everyday use factor, to where they're better workhorses, you know. But yeah, I'd love to hear what you think, and thank you very much for taking the time to listen to my crazy thoughts here, and talking about something that probably really doesn't matter at the end of the day anyways. I want to thank my patrons again. There's a link down below if you do want to help support and make this all possible, or at least help. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. LCD2C versus M1060 is coming out on Friday, so I will see you guys then.